A quiet battle happens inside the human mind every single day. It is invisible but powerful. Thoughts repeat. Questions return again and again. Small situations grow into huge problems inside the mind. A simple conversation from yesterday keeps replaying. A mistake from years ago suddenly feels fresh again. One decision turns into 1,000 doubts. The mind keeps searching for the perfect answer, but instead it creates confusion. This endless loop of thinking slowly steals energy, confidence and peace. Many people believe overthinking means they are intelligent or careful, but the truth is very different. Overthinking is not a sign of wisdom. It is a mental trap that quietly drains clarity and control. The more the mind tries to solve everything at once, the deeper it falls into stress and hesitation. Modern psychology now confirms something that ancient philosophers already understood thousands of years ago. Most suffering does not come from reality itself. It comes from the stories the mind keeps repeating about reality. Thoughts become louder than facts. Possibilities become more frightening than the present moment. And slowly the mind becomes its own worst enemy. Long before modern self-help books existed, Stoic philosophers were already studying this problem with remarkable depth. In ancient Rome and Greece, thinkers trained their minds the same way warriors trained their bodies. They believed that true strength was not physical power, but mental discipline. Some of the most powerful leaders in history followed these principles. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote private notes to himself, reminding his mind to stay calm in chaos. The philosopher Epictetus, who was once a slave, taught that peace begins the moment a person stops trying to control everything outside their mind. Their ideas were simple but powerful. Control what you can, accept what you cannot, and refuse to let useless thoughts dominate your life. These lessons were not created in comfortable classrooms. They were shaped during political turmoil, wars, betrayals, and personal loss. Stoicism was not theory, it was mental survival. Yet here is the surprising part. Despite living in an age of technology, comfort, and endless information, modern minds struggle with overthinking more than ever before. Constant notifications, social pressure, and endless choices have created a new kind of mental noise. Every decision feels heavier. Every mistake feels permanent. The brain keeps scanning for problems that may never appear. Overthinking slowly creates anxiety, fear, hesitation, and deep mental exhaustion. Hours disappear while the mind debates possibilities that lead nowhere. Confidence fades because every action feels uncertain. Opportunities pass because the mind is still analyzing. In reality, most people are not trapped by real problems, they are trapped by imagined ones. This is exactly where Stoic wisdom becomes powerful again. Stoicism does not promise to remove problems from life. Instead, it teaches something far more valuable. It teaches how to control the mind that reacts to those problems. Stoic thinkers discovered that when the mind is trained properly, clarity replaces confusion, calm replaces panic, action replaces endless analysis. Their philosophy is not complicated. It focuses on discipline, awareness, and simple rules that bring the mind back to reality. These rules helped emperors make difficult decisions, helped soldiers face uncertainty, and helped ordinary people stay calm during the hardest moments of their lives. In this video, 7 powerful Stoic rules will be revealed that can completely change the way the mind deals with overthinking. These rules are simple, but their impact is profound. Some of them challenge modern habits of thinking. Others expose hidden mental patterns that most people never notice. One rule explains why trying to control everything actually increases anxiety. Another rule shows how the mind quietly invents problems that do not exist. There is also a powerful Stoic practice that teaches how to observe thoughts without being controlled by them. Each rule builds a different layer of mental strength. When combined, they create a powerful shield against endless mental noise. What makes these Stoic rules especially powerful is that they focus on action rather than theory. Overthinking often happens when the mind becomes stuck between possibilities. Stoicism breaks that cycle. It replaces confusion with clarity and hesitation with simple decisions. Many people spend years searching for complicated solutions to their stress, yet Stoic philosophers solved this problem centuries ago using ideas that remain surprisingly practical today. Their wisdom is now being rediscovered by psychologists, athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders who understand that mastering the mind is the key to mastering life. Another interesting truth is that overthinking often feels productive even when it is not. The brain creates the illusion of progress by analyzing the same situation repeatedly, but analysis without action only deepens frustration. Stoic thinkers understood this mental pattern long before modern science studied it. They believed the mind must be trained to separate useful thinking from useless thinking. Useful thinking leads to action. Useless thinking leads to anxiety. Once a person learns the difference, the mind becomes quieter, sharper, and more focused. Throughout this video, each Stoic rule will reveal a different way to break the cycle of endless thinking. Some ideas may feel surprisingly simple. Others may challenge the way the mind usually reacts to problems, but together they form a powerful framework for mental clarity. By the end of this video, the goal is not only to understand why overthinking happens, but also to learn practical ways to stop it before it takes control. These lessons are not abstract philosophy. They are tools that can be applied in everyday life, during stressful decisions, difficult conversations, and moments when the mind refuses to slow down. Watching this video until the end will help uncover how ancient Stoic thinkers trained themselves to stay calm even during extreme pressure. It will reveal how focusing only on what can be controlled removes unnecessary mental weight. It will show why accepting uncertainty actually creates confidence instead of fear. Most importantly, it will explain how small changes in thinking can dramatically change the way the mind experiences daily life. The same mind that creates anxiety can also create calm once it is guided by the right principles. The truth is simple but powerful. Overthinking does not disappear by accident. It disappears through awareness, discipline, and practice. Stoicism offers a timeless guide for doing exactly that. These 7 rules are not quick tricks or temporary motivation. They are mental habits that strengthen clarity and reduce unnecessary worry over time. Anyone willing to apply them consistently can experience a calmer and more focused mind. Welcome to Stoic Wisdom Hub, a place where ancient philosophy meets modern life. If learning how to strengthen the mind and build inner calm sounds valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join a growing community exploring powerful Stoic ideas for everyday life. Now let's begin with the first Stoic rule that can start breaking the cycle of overthinking and help the mind return to clarity. The first Stoic rule begins with a simple but powerful truth that many people overlook. The human mind often wastes enormous energy trying to control things that are completely outside its power. This is one of the main sources of overthinking. The mind constantly tries to predict how others will react, how the future will unfold, and how past events could have been different. Hours disappear while the brain replays conversations, debates possible outcomes, and searches for a perfect explanation for things that cannot be changed. This endless effort creates tension because the mind is fighting a battle that cannot be won. Stoic philosophy offers a clear solution. Instead of trying to control everything around you, focus only on what is truly within your control. Your actions, your decisions, your effort, and your attitude belong to you. Everything else exists outside that circle. People's opinions belong to them. The future has not happened yet. Past mistakes cannot be rewritten. When the mind understands this separation, a huge amount of mental pressure disappears. Overthinking loses its fuel because the brain stops trying to solve problems that cannot be solved. Ancient Stoic thinkers treated this principle as the foundation of mental peace. Epictetus explained it clearly when he taught that some things depend on us and some things do not. Wisdom begins when a person learns to tell the difference. When the mind accepts that it cannot control the reactions of others, the fear of judgment becomes weaker. When the mind accepts that the future cannot be perfectly predicted, anxiety about tomorrow begins to fade. When the mind accepts that past mistakes are finished chapters, the heavy weight of regret becomes lighter. This rule does not mean becoming careless or passive. It means directing energy toward the only place where real influence exists. A person who focuses on their own response becomes stronger and calmer at the same time. Instead of trying to shape the entire world, they shape their own character. Instead of worrying about outcomes, they concentrate on effort. This small shift changes the way the mind experiences daily life. Overthinking thrives when the brain believes it must control everything. Calm begins when the mind understands that controlling your response is enough. A person cannot control every situation that appears in life, but they can always control how they respond to it. That realization alone can break many cycles of unnecessary thinking. The second Stoic rule reveals another hidden reason why overthinking becomes so powerful. The human mind has an extraordinary ability to imagine possibilities, but that ability can easily turn into a source of fear. When a situation appears uncertain, the brain begins to create scenarios. One possibility leads to another. A small concern grows into a chain of imagined disasters. A simple conversation that has not even happened yet suddenly becomes a complicated conflict inside the mind. The brain treats these imagined events as if they are real threats. The heart begins to race. The body becomes tense. Yet in most cases, these scenarios never happen. They exist only in imagination. Stoic thinkers understood this mental habit long before modern psychology studied it. They knew that the mind tends to exaggerate threats when it lacks clear information. Instead of letting the imagination run freely, Stoic practice encourages a simple question that brings the mind back to reality. Ask yourself whether the problem actually exists right now. Many fears immediately weaken when this question is asked honestly. The mind often realizes that it is reacting to something that has not occurred and may never occur. The Stoic approach is not to ignore possible challenges, but to deal with reality as it appears, instead of fighting imagined disasters. When the brain stops feeding energy into invented scenarios, overthinking begins to lose its strength. Reality is usually much simpler than the complicated stories the mind creates. A conversation may turn out calm instead of confrontational. A feared mistake may never happen. A situation that seemed threatening may reveal a simple solution. Stoic thinkers believed that the mind should observe reality with clarity rather than distort it with endless speculation. They practiced focusing on what is present instead of chasing shadows created by imagination. When a person trains themselves to recognize the difference between real problems and imagined ones, a large portion of mental anxiety disappears. Overthinking loses its power because it can no longer rely on exaggerated fears to keep the mind trapped. Reality becomes the anchor that prevents the mind from drifting into unnecessary worry. The third Stoic rule introduces a principle that many people resist at first, but eventually find deeply liberating. Life will not unfold exactly according to plan. Mistakes will happen, plans will fail, unexpected difficulties will appear without warning. Overthinking often grows from the desire to avoid every possible mistake or negative outcome. The mind keeps analyzing situations again and again because it hopes to discover the perfect strategy that guarantees success. But the search for perfection creates its own form of stress. When the brain believes that every mistake must be prevented, it becomes afraid to move forward. Stoic philosophy teaches a different perspective. Difficulties are not signs that life is broken. They are natural parts of existence. Every person experiences setbacks, misunderstandings, losses, and challenges. Trying to eliminate all uncertainty from life is impossible. The Stoics trained themselves to accept this reality with calm strength. Acceptance does not mean enjoying problems or inviting hardship. It means recognizing that uncertainty is a normal part of the human experience. When the mind stops fighting this truth, it becomes less fragile. Overthinking loses one of its strongest motivations because the brain no longer feels responsible for controlling every possible outcome. Instead of obsessing over what might go wrong, the mind prepares to face whatever does happen. This shift creates a surprising sense of freedom. A person who accepts uncertainty becomes more confident because they are no longer terrified of imperfection. If a mistake happens, it becomes a lesson rather than a disaster. If a plan fails, it becomes an opportunity to adjust direction. Stoic thinkers believed that strength comes from the ability to adapt, rather than the ability to predict everything. One powerful idea within Stoicism is that events themselves do not control the mind. The reaction to those events creates the emotional impact. When the mind accepts that some things will go wrong, those events lose their ability to shock and overwhelm. The fear of failure becomes smaller, because failure is no longer treated as a catastrophe. It becomes part of the process of learning and growth. This is why acceptance is so powerful. What you accept cannot control you. Resistance creates tension, but acceptance creates space for clear thinking. Overthinking thrives when the mind is trying to prevent every possible difficulty. Calm thinking begins when the mind accepts that life includes both success and struggle. The fourth Stoic rule focuses on one of the most damaging effects of overthinking. Endless thinking often replaces action. The brain becomes so busy analyzing possibilities that it never actually moves forward. This creates a form of mental paralysis. Decisions feel heavier and heavier because the mind keeps searching for additional information, better strategies, or perfect timing. Meanwhile, opportunities slowly pass by. Stoic philosophy strongly emphasizes the importance of action. Stoic thinkers believed that clear thinking should lead to movement rather than endless debate inside the mind. Even a small step can break the cycle of overthinking. Action changes the situation from a mental puzzle into a real experience. Once movement begins, the brain receives new information from reality instead of imagination. This new information often reveals that the situation is simpler than expected. The fear that existed before action often fades quickly once progress starts. Stoics trained themselves to focus on doing what was reasonable and necessary in the present moment. They did not wait for perfect certainty before acting. They understood that clarity often appears during action rather than before it. Overthinking delays progress because it tries to solve every detail in advance. But real life rarely provides complete information ahead of time. Decisions must often be made with partial knowledge. Stoic discipline teaches the mind to move forward anyway. A person who takes action learns faster than someone who remains trapped in analysis. Experience provides lessons that theory cannot offer. Even when the outcome is not perfect, the mind gains confidence because it proves that it can handle uncertainty. Each action becomes evidence that movement is possible even when the mind feels uncertain. Over time, this habit weakens the power of overthinking. The brain learns that progress does not require endless preparation. It only requires a willingness to begin. The fifth Stoic rule introduces a skill that many ancient philosophers considered essential for inner peace. The mind constantly produces thoughts, but not every thought deserves attention or belief. Thoughts often appear automatically based on past experiences, fears, and expectations. Some of them are useful, but many are simply mental noise. Overthinking becomes powerful when the mind treats every thought as an important signal that must be analyzed. Stoic practice teaches a different approach. Instead of reacting immediately to every thought, learn to observe them. Watch the thoughts appear and disappear without rushing to judge them or act on them. This creates a small distance between the thinker and the thought. In that space, clarity begins to grow. When a person observes their thoughts calmly, they begin to notice patterns. Certain worries repeat again and again, even though they rarely lead to solutions. Certain fears appear automatically whenever uncertainty arises. Once these patterns become visible, they lose some of their authority. The mind realizes that a thought is simply a mental event, not a command that must be obeyed. Stoic thinkers practice this form of awareness regularly. They believed that a disciplined mind should examine thoughts before accepting them as truth. This habit prevents the brain from being carried away by every emotional reaction. When a stressful thought appears, it can be observed rather than immediately believed. The mind becomes more stable because it learns to remain calm while thoughts come and go. Overthinking loses its power when thoughts are treated as temporary signals rather than permanent problems. The mind becomes like a clear sky, where clouds pass through without creating storms. The sixth Stoic rule addresses another source of mental confusion that modern life has intensified. Too many choices can overwhelm the brain. Every decision begins to feel complicated because the mind believes there must be a perfect option hidden among many possibilities. Overthinking grows stronger when the brain tries to evaluate every detail of every option. Hours may pass while comparing small differences that do not truly matter. Stoic philosophy encourages a simpler approach. Instead of searching for the perfect decision, focus on what is reasonable and aligned with your values. Perfection is rarely necessary for progress. Most decisions only require a thoughtful but practical choice. Once that choice is made, energy can shift toward action instead of continued debate. Stoics believed that simplicity strengthens the mind. When decisions are guided by clear principles rather than endless comparison, mental clarity increases. Overthinking loses its grip because the brain no longer feels responsible for analyzing every possible outcome. A reasonable decision made with good intention is enough. Life will always include uncertainty, But progress does not require perfect certainty. Progress only requires movement guided by wisdom and effort. The seventh Stoic rule brings attention to a perspective that ancient philosophers used to maintain focus and calm. Life is limited. Time moves forward constantly and never returns. Stoic thinkers often reflected on the shortness of life, not to create sadness, but to sharpen awareness of what truly matters. When the mind remembers that time is valuable, unnecessary worries lose their importance. Many thoughts that feel urgent today will not matter months or years later. Yet the mind often treats them as if they deserve endless attention. Overthinking consumes time that could be used for meaningful action, learning, connection, and growth. Stoic reflection encourages the mind to ask whether a particular worry deserves the limited time available in life. This question often reveals that many mental battles are not worth the energy they demand. When the mind recognizes the value of time, it becomes more selective about which thoughts deserve attention. Minor problems shrink because they no longer appear significant in the larger perspective of life. The Stoics believed that remembering the limited nature of time brings clarity to daily decisions. Energy should be directed toward meaningful goals rather than endless internal debates. When the mind focuses on living wisely instead of worrying endlessly, overthinking begins to fade. The simple awareness that life is short creates a powerful reminder. Do not spend your limited life fighting unlimited thoughts. A restless mind often gives the illusion of intelligence. Thoughts move quickly, questions multiply, every detail is examined again and again. Yet this constant mental noise rarely creates clarity. Instead, it produces confusion, doubt, and exhaustion. Stoic philosophy reveals a powerful truth that many people discover only after years of struggle. Overthinking is not the same as deep thinking. Deep thinking leads to understanding and action. Overthinking leads to hesitation and stress. The difference between the two is not intelligence. The difference is training. An untrained mind reacts to every thought that appears. It tries to control every outcome. It fights every possibility that might go wrong. But a trained mind learns something far more powerful. It learns to pause, to observe, and to focus only on what truly matters. The Stoic thinkers understood this long before modern psychology began to study the patterns of the human brain. They knew that peace does not appear automatically. It is built slowly through discipline and awareness. The mind must be trained the same way the body is trained. At first, the mind may resist. Old habits of worry may return again and again. But with practice, clarity becomes stronger than confusion. Each time you focus on what you can control, the mind becomes steadier. Each time you question a fear created by imagination, the mind becomes calmer. Each time you accept uncertainty instead of fighting it, the mind becomes lighter. These small shifts slowly transform the way a person experiences life. The world will never become completely predictable. People will continue to have opinions. Plans will sometimes fail. Unexpected events will always appear. Stoicism does not promise to remove these realities. Instead, it offers something far more valuable. It teaches the ability to remain calm in the middle of uncertainty. It teaches the strength to move forward, even when answers are incomplete. And it teaches the quiet confidence that comes from mastering your own response instead of trying to control everything outside of you. Overthinking loses its power the moment the mind stops treating every thought as a command. Thoughts are simply signals passing through the mind. Some deserve attention, many do not. When awareness grows stronger, the mind begins to recognize which thoughts lead to progress and which ones only create noise. This awareness creates space between you and your worries. In that space, calm decisions become possible. The mind becomes sharper because it is no longer crowded by endless speculation. Remember this simple Stoic truth. Peace does not come from controlling everything. It comes from controlling your mind. When the mind learns to focus on action instead of endless analysis, life begins to feel lighter. Decisions become clearer. Energy returns. Confidence grows because the mind is no longer trapped inside imaginary problems. Instead of fighting thousands of thoughts every day, the mind learns to guide them. Now take a moment to reflect on the ideas shared in this video. Which of these Stoic rules do you struggle with the most? Is it trying to control things that are outside your power? Is it imagining problems that have not even happened? Or perhaps the habit of thinking so much that action becomes difficult? Whatever the answer may be, Awareness is the first step toward change. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience may also help someone else who is trying to strengthen their mind. And before you move on to the next video, try something simple today. Choose just one of these Stoic rules and apply it in a real situation. Notice what happens when you focus only on your response. Notice what happens when you question a fear instead of believing it immediately. Small changes in thinking can create powerful changes in how the mind experiences the world. If you found value in this video and want to keep learning powerful Stoic lessons that help build a calmer, stronger mind, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This channel is dedicated to exploring Stoic philosophy, mental discipline, and practical self-improvement ideas that can help you think clearly and live with greater purpose. Also take a second to like the video and share it with someone who might be struggling with overthinking. Sometimes a single idea can completely change the way a person sees their own thoughts. Thank you for watching and being part of this growing community that is learning how to master the mind instead of being controlled by it. More powerful Stoic insights are coming soon. Stay curious, stay disciplined, and keep strengthening your mind.